Pine cones come in various shapes and sizes. They are used a lot for decorations and also in the arts and crafts. And we are going to paint one in watercolor, but from the top side view. The first thing we need to do is to add masking fluid all the way around the inside edge of the sketch. And make it about 10 to 15 millimeters wide. That's about a half an inch. This will prevent the dark paint from spoiling the final painting. Mix up a very dark mix using ultramarine blue with some burnt sienna to make a blue-black. Now paint this all around the cone and making it slightly lighter in the foreground as the cone is lying on the ground. With a sponge, begin dabbing it to create some texture. And while it is still damp, pick up some yellow with the sponge and dab it into the dark mix. This will create a darkish green. Dry thoroughly and remove the masking fluid. We now need to protect the very light areas within the cone with masking fluid. When you have done that, dry the masking fluid and you can now start painting in a yellow undercoat. Dry this undercoat with a hairdryer. With burnt sienna and a touch of blue, begin by painting in the darkest parts of the scales to help establish the pattern. Once this is done, paint the center scales with a light sienna mix. The center section is the focal point and is the darkest. The scales get gradually lighter and lighter towards the outside ring of scales. Gradually build up the tonal ranges and all the markings. And then notice that the scales are slightly depressed along the center lines, almost like a canoe shape. Sometimes they will need to be dried every now and then before painting in the more definite and more detailed lines. This is the focal point, and it needs to be more detailed than all the other scales. Notice how the masking fluid defines the scale tips. With a damp brush, lift out the areas reflecting the sunlight, and this adds to the 3D effect. With a slightly lighter mix, begin the next rows of scales. And notice how the top row of scales throw the shadows onto the row below. It is this play on the contrasts, the darks against the lights, that add to the drama of the cone scales. As before, slowly and carefully build up the tonal ranges as well as the details. With an even lighter color, begin the third row of scales. This set of scales will have less detailing in them, and don't try to add too much detail, as this will detract from the center focal point. This last ring will have almost no detail and will be softer in tonal range than the others. We now need to soften the outer edges of the cone to merge in with the deep shadow of the background. Continue all the way around the cone. Because this outer row is almost in the shadow, we can make it slightly darker than the previous row. Darken up the shadows between the scales to lift the upper ones out. Continue touching up and building up all the different tonal ranges. And some shadows are darker than the rest. Add some shadows at the tip of the scales to accentuate the turned up edges. Remove the masking fluid off the tips of the scales and finish off with a light sienna mix. Please like this video if you enjoyed watching it and leave a comment below. Also, please subscribe for more videos like this.